So the next part on the presentation, on the agenda, are federal updates, and this is an opportunity for our federal partners to give an update. And one of the things that we heard a lot on the evaluations over the last several years is that the produce people wanted to hear more updates on preventive controls, because historically we used to just do produce updates in the produce meeting and preventive controls updates in the preventive controls meeting. And we would hear, why am I not, the produce people would say, why am I not hearing any PC updates? And the produce PC people would say, I want to hear more produce updates. So we've now combined them, so we're hearing both. So I recognize that people specialize in one area or the other, and it might not be what you're doing every day, but it was a very, very clear request that we have both available to everybody. So we'll start with produce, and I'd like to welcome Ben Marshall up. So Ben is with the Produce Safety Network. Our rep for the Northeast region is Adriana Jimenez Lopez, but she is on a special assignment for the time being, and so while she's on assignment, Ben is our PSN rep from the Northeast region. So I am happy to have him, and I'll turn it over to Ben. Oh, and here's the clicker, forward and back. Green is forward, red is back.
All right, we'll try that. I appreciate that, and yes, I am fairly new with the FDA, as in 5 months. So I kind of wanted to take this presentation, if nothing else, just to kind of introduce myself as the newest member of CIFSA and PSN. I come from the Show Me State, Missouri. I'm a farm boy from there. Our family's been there since 1834. We were land grant, still live on the family farm, raise a few cows, and never had a canned vegetable till I went to college because, well, everybody grows an acre garden and has an eighth of an acre of green beans to pick. At least that's what I thought. But I truly love produce, and I worked for the Missouri Department of Agriculture for 3 years. We were a Path B state, and I was one of the regulators, but then also outreach and education was a big part of what we did. We worked with the University of Missouri Extension, Patrick Byers, if anybody knows Patrick, and also Londa Nowadiki from K-State University. We worked with them a lot. I've been on multiple on-farm readiness reviews and on over 1,000 unique produce farms from Amish and Mennonite type farms all the way to the inner city St. Louis, where we walk in and go, oh my gosh, this is literally in the inner city of St. Louis. You guys are doing a phenomenal job, and it's all covered. So have a good, diverse background, but whenever there was an opportunity to go over to FDA, I felt that from the state side especially, I just wanted to work with other regions. And so this has allowed me I'm supposed to cover the North Central region, which is basically Kansas, the Dakotas, and then back this direction to Ohio. And whenever Adriana went on detail, I said, hey, can I go cover the Northeast? Because I've sat in on a lot of calls, a lot of virtual presentations from that direction, and honestly, I just want to go meet those people and see the type of farming, meet the different educators and regulators in that area, and just learn. Because I think as long as we're all learning, we're all meeting each other, and we're able to work together, and we're a phone call away, produce safety is just going to be better. So with that, I'll kind of get into this. This is our team. Division of Produce Safety. Mike Mahovic is our chief. This is the fresh produce branch. So 30% of us are new. Just in the last 6 months or so. You can see we have two different teams, the policy team, the Produce Safety Network. The policy team are those that you would call on if you have a specific question. Each of them have a specialty that they work on specifically. And then the Produce Safety Network, the rest of us are assigned different regions, and we are the contact then for whether it be TAN question, RTAN, just education outreach, the workshops that I'll talk about. And so that is our team there. The old philosophy, together everyone achieves more. This kind of describes our team and some of the knowledge base that our team members do have. You can see there's a wide range there, and so I wanted to put this slide up especially from the education outreach side. If there's something that you're working on or that you have an interest with, just come talk to me, and I can put you in touch with the person that does have the knowledge base in those areas. We're not all experts, and I loved whenever Chris said that. We may be an expert on the rule and what it says, and And from that standpoint, but as far as experts in a field, we can always learn more and we can always gain that knowledge. So I thought that it was important to see that we are a diverse group. Our focus, you can see here, promote, build, engage, and collaborate. And I think this is one of the big things since everything went virtual in 2020 and we kind of shut down. If you look at our engagement 2017, 18, and 19, it was through the roof. But then the last couple of years, it obviously has slowed back down. But now that the different things are being lifted and we're able to be engaged again, use us for what we can help you with. Our job at CIFSAM PSN is to be that voice from the FDA side, but for the education and outreach. The CIFSAM PSN, we're not regulatory. We're education and outreach. And so we want to work with you all in order to help those growers understand exactly what they need to do. You know, whenever I walk on a farm, I'm assuming they're doing everything right. And then we watch, right? And we see what their practices are, because every farm is different. And there may be things they can work on. But if you go tell a farmer they're doing something wrong, you're going to be told to leave that farm, right? So we need to work with them in ways, and you all are the experts at that. You guys are on farms. You understand that. And so we do have knowledge in certain areas, but we definitely want to make sure we're working with you alongside you on those farms. Invite us out. Even though our travel budget was a little tight, we think we found some funds to actually be able to travel, and there's nothing better than walking out on a farmer. I always say I got out of the truck and said, howdy. You know, how could you yell at somebody whenever they're in a baseball hat and you say howdy? You at least have 5 minutes to try to gain their trust, right? So we have our produce safety workshops, the BASAL workshop, cleaning and sanitizing, ag water, and then I want to touch on that systems thinking. We're actually phasing out the systems thinking workshop, mainly because we're putting that into FD 227, which is going to be a voluntary course that can be the field study for FD 226. And so these 3 workshops we do have available. You all know more about it than I do. I'm still learning about it. But if you're interested in hosting these in the region, in your states, with multiple states, come talk to me and let's see what we can get done, because we would love to come out and help put on these workshops for you. Finally, this is my contact information. That's my work cell there. If you call it, I'll answer it because it's new, so I don't have a lot of robocalls yet. So if you would like to get in touch with me, shoot me an email, give me a call, come talk to me. I love meeting people and love just the interaction. And so being new to the Northeast, as far as helping cover it for a short 90 days, I hope it's not just 90 days. I hope it's for as long as I'm involved in this role, and that you all feel comfortable enough to say, hey, what's Ben doing? Let's bring him along too, because I love learning and I love being a part of this. So thanks for a few minutes.
Okay. So we do have time for questions. If there are any, as Ben is walking away. Are there questions for Ben? We'll have time at the end, but I figure if there's individual questions when they're up here, while they're fresh in your mind. Any questions? Yes, go ahead. Do we have the mics? Oh, thanks, Chris.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Great.
I missed your phone number and email address, so I'll catch up with you later and get it.
Okay.
But my question is, on these trainings, the produce safety workshops, how do you train those to people who don't speak English and farmers who have, you know, we're a unique organization and we have farmers from basically the Congo and Somalia who speak 8 different languages, and it's very, very difficult, you know. So I'm trying to, in my brain, put together programs that I can train or we can train using ESL strategies, pictures, etc. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything like that currently?
It's a great question. I don't know specifically, again, new into this role, yeah. But I will definitely make a note of it, though, and I'll ask. We have folks that focus on international, mainly Spanish-speaking countries. But yeah, it's a definite need, and we dealt with that some with our mung growers in Missouri as well. That translation is tough, and you do have to work with that. So,
Great.
But I'll get with you, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, 'cause
and
if
I
you-
can see
if-
what resources we have.
Excellent, because if you want to put together a prototype or a strategy, I'll be more than happy to work with you or whoever to put it together.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, Chuck, I would also just point out Luke and Jeff Stoltzfus have a non-PowerPoint sort of tailgate produce safety training that's highly visual. And there's also, Donna, can you just say a few words about more than words? Right on. Thanks. I knew that. So Donna's going to talk about that a little bit later. Also another highly visual, nonverbal approach.
Mary, did you have a question? So I asked a lot of questions about these workshops myself. At first, I thought we just came and put them on, but that's not how it works. We actually work with Extension in the state to help organize and put those on. Cleaning and sanitizing workshop has been done virtual. What they've said is that what I've been told, just with asking my colleagues, a lot of times they'll do a few virtually to kind of get the insight, the material, the background, but then it would be good to have a day to actually put what you learn in the classroom together for in person. And I think that's why the workshops are designed the way they are, is to kind of take what's there as the outline, the skeleton, and then adapt it to what works well for your state or for your growers. And so it can be virtually, or it can be in person, or a combination of both. I can provide you information about the workshops, yes. As far as where to go online, I'm honestly not 100% sure. I don't think they're there, but I can provide you the information on them. And we are going to talk water tomorrow, because I know that was the most searched topic, and it's not clear, which was a great pun, and I don't even think she knew that she said it. But that is going to be tomorrow. The rescheduled water talk is tomorrow also. But I saw the first part of it. The fact sheet did come out next week, and we'll have those websites and that information tomorrow morning whenever Michael talks about it. So,
Hang on, Luke.
How does the content of these courses dovetail with what Produce Safety Alliance has developed? Didn't we get there already? I'm not sure.
that would be before my time, and Donna, you could probably speak on that. And a lot of times the workshops are developed with industry, with the different stakeholders. PSA was probably involved in helping with the workshops, but Donna, I'll let you speak to that.
Oh, the short answer is I'm not quite sure. So I've not personally participated in any of the FDA workshops. I know there's been some overlap. I believe Betsy assisted with at least one of the cleaning and sanitizing workshops. I think Billy may have as well. So I think there is a little bit of overlap, but I'm not quite sure the exact answer. Yeah.
You want to add?
Just to add a little bit, it's kind of like Module 3. You get introduced to biological soil amendments of animal origin, and it's a nice 45 minutes. Your adult curiosity is engaged, and then the Basal workshop is a full-on breakdown, so people who want to learn more about that. The Ag Water workshop, which we just piloted last month, gives people an opportunity to touch different parts of an irrigation system hands-on, like hold a backflow preventer, see how it works, go out into a system. So it's a way to take what you learned at the PSA grower training and then build on that information.
Yeah, the water systems workshop is awesome. I mean, it is. Whenever you can sit there and you see pictures, that's great. But whenever you say, this is what an actual backflow device looks like, this is what you should be looking for. I know whenever I was a regulator, that kind of information is good to know and learn. So,
Wes Klein from Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Perennial question, what is going to be the interpretation related to drop produce in the sense of a pepper touches plastic or the soil and still on the plant? Same thing with tomatoes. This is an ongoing issue, and it will cut yields at least 50% in many growers if that is considered drop produce.
yeah, and I appreciate the question, Wes, and congratulations if you are retiring. You're a legend, even though we've never met. You're a legend. I will take that information back. I know that it is being discussed. Audrey, go ahead.
Hi, Audrey Draper, USDA FDA liaison, I guess. But caveat, I represent USDA when I speak. The feedback has been heard. I know that it is directly addressed in compliance and enforcement guidance that's coming. The compliance and enforcement is still being, the final version is being drafted, and it is in there and it's forthcoming. So I don't think you're going to get a definitive answer until that guide comes out, but you were heard, everyone was heard, and it is in there. Yeah, I think, do you have a date on, are we allowed to give a date on compliance, CNI?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Let me get back to you.
Let me get back to you. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you all. That you said they were going to throw tomatoes, so thanks for not throwing anything.
My favorite FDA timeline is tantalizingly close. So maybe that's what it is? Which I don't even know what that means. Has that been defined by the courts? Tantalizingly close? Anyway, I'm an attorney, so that's why I ask if it's been defined. Imminent, these words, they have to be defined because we don't know what they mean otherwise. Okay, so with that, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share that information with us. Much appreciated. And so next, I would like to welcome Jody Williams, and I'm very, very happy to be welcoming Jody Williams. Jody was the director of the Food Safety Outreach Program at USDA for a number of years, and then with the transition to Kansas City, she wasn't, but now she is back, and she is permanently the director of the Food Safety Outreach Program, and we can't be happier to have her here. And so I would like to welcome Jody up to share an update on the FSOP program. So thanks, Jody.
Thanks for that introduction, so I don't have to come up with a politically savvy way to state that. So happy to be back. So happy to see all the great work that you guys are doing. As I was telling Chris when I saw him earlier, you guys make us look really, really good out there. So my name is Jody Williams. I'm the National Program Leader for the Food Safety Outreach Program. So I provide leadership for that program from RFA development all the way through to post-award management, which is kind of what I'm doing here today, really taking a look at those outcomes and impacts so that I can share it back with anyone who asks. So Congress asks, our leadership asks, FDA asks. So whenever we're able to provide some of the insights, help to answer questions, a lot of the feedback that I get from these meetings is what I provide. And so just a caveat for reporting. So while a lot of it will be triggered in this meeting, I do go back and read those reports for the details. So when you guys are asked for feedback for surveys, when you do your reporting in report, we absolutely read those, okay? We read them when they come in for approval, and we also go back to read them when we are asked questions about programs in certain states. So if the Secretary of Ag is visiting a certain state, he may ask, oh, well, what are they doing in food safety in that state? We'll get those questions. And so it's always nice to be able to say, oh, we have an awardee who's done this in this state. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Food Safety Outreach Program and give kind of updates. When I was in the room, so I usually do slides. Today I'm not doing slides. And of course, the day I decide to do slides is the day that half the room says this is their first meeting and they've never really done this. Right, welcome. So I am going to give an update. I was going to share a slide deck with Elizabeth after this, so you will have access to slides. So the Food Safety Outreach Competitive Grant Program provides funding for food safety training, education for small and mid-sized producers and processors that were affected by FSMA, and that's in the broadest sense. The Food Safety Outreach Program request for application was posted in mid-November. We did a live webinar on December 19th. That webinar is posted and available on our website. That will be on the slide deck that I share. So the link to it, but if you want to just Google it, NIFA Food Safety Outreach Program, technical assistance webinar, I promise you it'll be like close to the first hit. Now, I will also say, I tried to access our website this morning to do some things, and I couldn't get to it. So I don't know if that's I'm restricted as a USC employee, I hope not, or if it's just down for a little while or whatever. But it will be up momentarily if it's not already available to you. So in summary, the program has been around for just under 10 years. The total funding for the program for this current year is $9.6 million. We started at $2.5 million. So that's significant growth for a federal program in a reasonably short amount of time. Eligible entities for the program is cooperative extension, non-governmental organizations and community-based organizations, federal, state, local, or tribal agencies, as well as institutions of higher education, of course. Proposals for this year are due on February 16th at 5 o'clock. Okay? We have 3 priorities this year, one of which is new. We have our community outreach program, which we've done for years. That's kind of been a staple. Our collaborative education and training, which was previously called the multi-state education and training. We just changed the name. And then the new one this year is the technical assistance and grant writing skills program. All priorities are eligible for that collaborative engagement supplement, and so that is an additional $150,000 for meaningful collaboration with minority-serving entities, so not just institutions. So community-based organizations that serve minority that either are led by and or serve minority populations. And so for that last caveat, you have to prove that in your proposal. So you have to prove that the organization that you're collaborating with, or provide data, that organization that you're collaborating with serves minority population and is led by. That new priority, technical assistance and grant writing skills, we're looking to support the development and refinement of grant writing skills and provide grant writing resources. The resources should target entities that support individuals or groups that are led by and directly interact with underserved populations. And this includes new applicants, community-based organizations, and minority-serving institutions in order to strengthen the applications that are being submitted to the Food Safety Outreach Program. A lot of the feedback that we received during panel, mostly because they have access to all the proposals, is a lot of the proposals that we get in are great. They have great ideas, great concepts, great objectives, but the proposal isn't as well written, and so, or don't have the right partners. And so we wanted to really provide an opportunity to get those types of proposals that don't make the cut because of there's some type of issue with the proposal and not an issue with the ideas or the intended audience. And so we want to make sure those proposals are able to be more successful in our competitive review process. We are also asking that applicants work collaboratively with regional centers to ensure broad coverage and outreach to their specific regions and communities, which I'm sure was a surprise to our regional centers when that came out. So, because we can't ask because they're eligible to apply. So you guys may be getting some emails about collaborating in that aspect. And that looks to include coordinating and communicating workshops and sessions through the centers, as well as utilizing regional center websites, portals, and social media feeds to share toolkits, webinars, and other resources. When we're talking about the grant writing resources developed, the idea is that they'll significantly increase, like I said, the number of successful applicants from organizations that support our target audiences. Are there any questions? You guys aren't going to do me like you did, Ben? I like it. If you see me, I'll be around. So if you see me, feel free to ask me any questions. I'm happy to provide any, additional answers to questions that you may have as we go through. So I'm going to sneak away.
Are there really no questions for Jody? Any questions? Oh, we do have a question, Jody. Oh, here you go.
So I'm very new at this, first of all.
Absolutely.
And part of my challenge is to get a lot of portable hand washing sinks into the fields, as well as possibly compostable toilets into the field, and sanitizing stations, because it's so important to keep everything safe. Yep. So are you saying that I may be able to get a grant for those items?
As long as you provide education and outreach and training
Yeah.
in association with those items. Yes.
And again, I'm very new, especially in nonprofit, first-time position.
Mm-hmm.
Do I fill that in? Do I speak to you? Do I have someone in my office, in the offices?
Mm-hmm.
Very slim staff, but fill it in.
So I'm going to talk to you directly, but yes, you will have to submit a competitive proposal. But I will speak with you directly about the details of that and direct you to the webinar. There's more information on the webinar. We have grant writing tip sheets and additional resources specifically for our non-governmental organizations and nonprofits. And I also recommend that you talk to your colleagues here. They have all been, just about everyone in here has been successful. So, and everyone is very, very helpful and very collaborative. So I'm definitely happy to speak with you, and I will, but also use this audience as a resource.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, and then just with that, also, I want to say volunteering to serve as a panelist on our peer review panel, either you or any of your staff from your organization. We're always looking for peer reviewers to serve on panel. Food Safety Outreach Program is a little different from our other competitive grant programs in terms of our peer reviewers. The peer review team should look like your applicants. And so we don't just have PhDs. We have everyone across the gamut serving on our panel. And so we would welcome anyone who is interested in serving on panel to send me an email. It's just jody.williams@usda.gov.
Any other questions? Any questions? No? Okay. You'll probably get lots of emails on February 12th with lots of questions.
That's when they like to send them.
Right. Right. So, do I have a account and report? Is this right? Okay. Thank you, Jody. So next I would like to invite Donna to the stage. So Donna is with the Produce Safety Alliance, and she has been with the Produce Safety Alliance for many years, but she was out in the West in California. But she's originally from Maryland and recently moved back to that area with her family. And many of you will remember Gretchen Wall, who had been the coordinator and the Northeast educator for the Produce Safety Alliance, moved on to another position earlier last year. And Donna is now taking over that role. So while not new to the Produce Safety Alliance, new to our region, and I'm very happy to have Donna here and giving the update for the Produce Safety Alliance. So thank you, Donna.
Hey, everybody. So Elizabeth took about half of my talk right there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really excited to get to meet you all in person. Hopefully you can see me over this podium. But as Elizabeth mentioned, for a long time, the Western Regional Center was sort of my home regional center, and I used to do a lot of collaboration with them. I still do, but I am really, really excited to meet you all in person at this conference. Excellent. So I wanted to mention a little bit of updates within the PSA team. And a lot of these updates are really relevant for the Western folks, but because for those of you who have collaborated with PSA in the past, we do view ourselves as one big team. So depending on expertise and language spoken, you may work with a lot of the folks that are living out West as well. So a quick update I wanted to give. As Elizabeth mentioned, I am now in the Northeast. I live in Columbia, Maryland. And Gretchen has left the program, but the exciting news is that we still do collaborate with Gretchen. She's now with the International Fresh Produce Association. I know a lot of you used to work very closely with her, and we still kind of view her as part of our expanded team. So we still talk quite a bit and get to collaborate. A couple of other updates. You will see Don Steckel. He's kind of in the middle here. He is actually now in California, so we kind of flipped coasts. But Don is temporarily working with the Produce Safety Alliance on some of our Subpart E agricultural water outreach. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide. And then in terms of newer folks, oh, I just broke it. Here we go. In terms of newer folks, out west, we have hired Mariana Silva. She is located in Irvine, California. She is one of our Spanish language extension associates. So even though she lives out west, she sort of has a national scope and international as well. And then we have Collins Bujingo. He replaced Connie Fisk. He is in Washington State. He is our Northwest Regional Extension Associate. And then Thais, we most recently hired in October. She was my replacement. So she is in California. She lives right in the Central Valley. And she is our Southwest Regional Extension Associate. And we're really excited to have all of these new folks because they're also bringing with them a lot of additional expertise. And then I do want to highlight, for those of you who know Ricardo Orellana, he recently left the team. So we are working to hire a new Spanish language extension associate. That position just recently closed, and we are looking through applications. So we're very excited to have our Spanish language team filled up again because we have a lot of Spanish language outreach that we're working on. Yeah, so with that, I want to jump right into some training numbers. You will notice that this is from our third quarter annual report, or our quarterly report, so it ends September 30th of last year. We are actually working on our updated quarterly report very soon. So these numbers are actually slightly out of date, but a couple of things I want to highlight here. You see over 2,700 grower trainings, but I really want to highlight that almost 80,000 grower training participants. That is a lot of people who have been trained. So first of all, I want to thank you all, our PSA trainers and educators in the room, because that number is really thanks to you. I also want to highlight that number because when it comes to Subpart E outreach, that's really the number of folks, that plus our trainers, is who we're going to be trying to reach out to notify them on any updated requirements to agricultural water and Subpart E. So I just wanted to highlight that number for that reason, because I think we have a lot of work, as educators, we have a lot of work to do in the next couple of years. And then the last thing I want to mention on this slide is because there's so much turnover, new positions, new hires, just a quick plug that on our Produce Safety Alliance website, we have our public directory. So as people are moving within the produce safety sphere, leaving that sphere, please take a moment and update that directory page. I've been getting some recent updates or requests from different departments in Extension or Department of Ag to sort of update all of their folks, and we're happy to work with you to do that. But we do try to keep that public directory up to date so that people can use it successfully. Okay, so with that, I want to jump into a couple of Produce Safety Alliance updates for 2023. The first thing that I want to highlight is that we have been expanding into international training. So one of our newer deliverables that we've been tasked with is conducting 15 PSA grower training courses in Mexico. And these are with very specific commodity groups. So onion, mango, melon, there's a couple of additional ones that we're working with as well. And for Davis and Mariana and a couple of our other Spanish language associates, they have a pretty big task ahead of them. So we're in the middle of setting those dates and the locations, but we are very excited about these grower training courses in Mexico, as well as really working with trainers down there to get experience and mentor. I do want to highlight that this will impact our domestic Spanish language outreach. We have been really trying to, with our Spanish language extension associates, we have been trying to host quarterly grower training courses domestically, as well as quarterly PSA Train the Trainer courses. And we are still working on doing that, but with all of these grower training courses in Mexico, that is sort of impacting scheduling a little bit. And then the other thing I want to mention about our Spanish language program is we are working on paralleling and translating all of our English language outreach. And I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. The next thing I want to mention as an update is in October, our Produce Safety Alliance website migrated. So we're on a new platform. Anybody who has visited our website in the last couple of months probably noticed it looks a lot different. I wouldn't even say a little different. But your quick reminder, if you could update any of your bookmarks and fact sheets, anything that references the PSA website, we do have redirects in place. However, eventually they're going to expire, and we don't want to see a lot of broken bookmarks. Then the last thing I want to mention on this slide is funding. As you all know, the Produce Safety Alliance is soft money funded. So I will just highlight that our funding does remain a concern and something that we're always working toward. We currently have full funding through September 2023, that's this year, and we have partial funding through June of 2024. But I always like to keep that in the forefront of everybody's mind. Okay, water has been a large topic of conversation so far at this meeting, and I will add to that with this slide. I wanted to highlight some of PSA's efforts toward ag water. I mentioned that we hired Don Steckel as a temporary or short-term employee. One of the big things he's been doing within the team is working on some of our agricultural water efforts, looking forward to first harvest and post-harvest water, because that enforcement discretion is being removed toward the end of this month. But then also looking ahead to some of those pre-harvest or production water requirements. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things that we have up on the website or are working toward. The first one are our supplemental training slides on the proposed Subpart E requirements. This is a slide set. I think there's 12 or 13 slides. We hosted an educators call on this back in August, I want to say, and we posted the supplemental slides up on the website pretty shortly thereafter. And it talks a little bit about both harvest and post-harvest requirements, as well as those proposed pre-harvest water requirements, the ag water assessment, things like that. And we put pretty extensive notes in the supplemental slides. I will mention there, we get a lot of questions about, okay, how do I present Module 5.1? And we internally at PSA are still having a lot of discussion about that. And I think anytime somebody presents it, we do it slightly different. Because we're trying to figure out the best way to present all of that information. So we are looking at recording a new Module 5.1, that's the Ag Water section refresher, so like that office hour. We're looking at recording a new one and posting that on the website, showing, okay, here's kind of how we as PSA, here's an approach, I'll say. It might not even be the best approach, but here's an approach on how to present Module 5.1. So we are working on that, and that should be posted, in the near future on the website. Our current priority is working on harvest and post-harvest water requirements, because that is, that is coming, I think imminently is the term that Elizabeth used. So a couple of details there. We are currently updating the PSA required records templates. This is a document that I think we released initially in 2018. Very specifically, we're looking at updating the water system inspection template, having a lot more detail, and it is actually going to be accompanied by a sort of decision tree fact sheet on how to use it. And that's sort of in the final review stages, so we're hoping that comes out pretty soon. And then we're also looking at updating sanitizer resources. There's a couple of projects that we have that we're working on, updating the sanitizer tool, some additional fact sheets, things like that. And then lastly, I want to mention we have an upcoming Produce Safety Educators Call series on harvest and post-harvest water. I am working to confirm that dates, but it looks like the next one's going to be end of next week. But as soon as we get that date confirmed, you'll see that in your email. But we're looking at doing the series, first highlighting FDA, talking about the removal of enforcement discretion, compliance states, and then we're working on a series highlighting some of PSA's new resources. Okay, to finish up discussion about educational materials, we recently posted traceability supplemental slides up on the website. That was an educators call that we hosted right before the holidays, like 2 days before the holidays, at the end of December. And then we also have our More Than Words produce safety illustrations up on the website. And this is what I think Chuck was asking about. You can see a screenshot in the lower right-hand side of this screen. We have 15 illustrations up. In the very near future, it's going to be 20. And they are on a series of different produce safety topics. Everything from, there's going to be one on dropped covered produce, but everything from a lot of cleaning and sanitizing, worker training, no harvest buffer zones, things like that. And their teaching notes are pretty extensive. They're currently in English, and we are also working on translating them into Spanish. We have PSA grower training manual translations. We've always had English and we've had Spanish for a long time. We also have Chinese, Korean, and Portuguese. And those are on the website for anybody who's interested in using those translations. And there's another one, Ilocano is currently being translated. And there's a couple of others that we've heard about depending on grant funding that might happen. And then the last thing on the slide I want to highlight are our educators groups in English and Spanish. Recently, we've really been using these educators groups to highlight new regulations like the traceability rule, revisions to the regulation like subpart E. But I want to mention the Spanish educators group we're particularly proud of. This is relatively new, I think about a year and a half old. But we actually see very similar attendance between Spanish and English, which I think is incredible for being a very young program. So coming up, our Spanish educators groups are sort of paralleling what we're doing in English, talking about the traceability rule, talking about subpart E revisions, but generally we do have sort of independent series for English and Spanish. So I know a lot of people attend both. A couple of additional updates. I just want to talk a little bit about the temporary remote training policy. So I think as a team within PSA, we've all sort of been settling into our COVID schedules. Now that we're adding in-person trainings back in, that's a combination of remote grower training courses, remote train the trainer courses. We've been trying to host them quarterly, as well as starting to add back in-person train the trainer courses and other courses to mentor people. But I did quickly want to mention that we are analyzing evaluations to look at remote grower training courses versus in-person. And the idea here is that, as you know, our remote training policy has been, we keep extending it. We're really trying to decide on whether we should finalize that and just make it a permanent policy. And as you know, at PSA, we do pretty much everything we try to do is based on evaluations, any big decision. So we're currently looking at evaluations in order to support that decision. And this figure that I have on the right-hand side is just sort of a visual in response to that evaluation question, asking if the FSMA Produce Safety Rule curriculum content is supportive, and if it is really sufficient in guiding growers to meet the regulatory requirements. And I just want to highlight that in blue here we have, I don't know how to go back, so there we go. In blue we have in-person grower training courses, and in orange we have remote delivery courses. And I just want to highlight that response there was no significant difference. So we are seeing a lot of similarities between the evaluation in our initial looking at that. Okay, so to wrap things up, I do want to put in a plug for the upcoming PSA Advanced Trainer Workshop. This is being held at University of Florida's Citrus Station in Lake Alfred, Florida. This is February 7th to 9th. If anybody is interested, there is a QR code that leads to the registration page. Registration closes January 20th, so very soon. And for anybody who is not familiar with this, it's a really great in-person, very hands-on 3-day workshop. And we have half-day sessions on things like soil amendments, cleaning and sanitizing, post-harvest water, and things like that. And I think there is some overlap or some similarities with FDA workshops as well here. But this is a really, really great workshop. There's a few collaborators in the room that have attended and worked on this as well. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me. And then I just want to put in a plug and show our PSA website. It's producesafetyalliance.cornell.edu, because I know there are some newer folks in the room. So I don't know if I have any time for questions, but I'll let Elizabeth say if there's any questions I can
Yeah,
answer.
are there any questions? We have time for a couple. Jeff.
When can we expect version 2.0 of the curriculum?
Good question. When can we expect the final subpart E? Jeff, that's a really great question. We are waiting to do any additional revisions to the PSA website until after we see the final requirements, the final subpart E requirements. And you did mention 2.0. So just a heads up, when we update the PSA curriculum, up until now, it's been versions of version 1. So we're currently in, we had version 1.0, now we're in 1.2. We've been viewing these versions as relatively equivalent so that people are still able to use version 1.1 of the manual if they have a stockpile. When we update the PSA Grow Training curriculum to include subpart E, and I know there's some other things that are coming out in the near future, it's going to probably version 2.0, and it will not be equivalent because we're really going to be looking at changing up all of the modules. We have sort of a long list of things that we would like to incorporate. So I think we're going to start, when subpart E is finalized, and it's probably going to take at least 6 to 9 months to get those revisions and then go through that review process. And I think that's probably an optimistic time frame.
Hi there.
Hey.
I'm a lead trainer in Vermont, and perennially when we run grower training courses, trying to get the original or most up-to-date slides for the grower training has been difficult. On the old website, usually requesting a link, if you could just briefly speak to that and how to do that now with the new website.
Perfect. So it should be the same. I would have to double check for sure to walk through the process. But so for those PSA trainers or lead trainers in the room, the PowerPoint presentations are up on the website, but it is a website that you need the link to it because it's not publicly searchable. So if anybody can't find it, just shoot me an email and I can send you the link. It should just be you click on the link and you go through. You should be able to download it, and that link takes you to any of the translations. I want to say it downloads as a zip file, but it's been a little while since I've looked. But yeah, it'll take you to any of those translations that we have. And I will say, depending on when you looked, we did have some redirect issues for the first 2 days after the website migrated. So if that's when you happen to look in October, that could be the issue that you were having. Yeah.
Hi. Oh, excuse me.
If we have time.
I just had a question about, do you have a process envisioned for retraining of trainers when you release 2.0?
Ooh, good question. We have a process. I'm going to call it a draft process. We have a process in mind. We have not finalized what that process is going to look like in its final form. But what we're envisioning for retraining trainers is, first of all, hosting a webinar. So we're looking at doing sort of a mixed approach of doing things remotely because a lot of people like the ease of remote, but we also recognize a lot of people just like in person, and some of the flexibility in person arrives in terms of maybe we could attach a workshop to it or whatnot. So we're looking at doing remote training and then also in-person options. We think it will probably be required for all PSA trainers to attend, and we think that we're going to keep participation logs as well, because we expect that the changes to the curriculum are going to be pretty drastic. But it is not going to be, it's probably going to be a couple of hours. It's not going to be a full day or multi-day thing, is kind of what we're envisioning. I think we kind of have to see what the final product looks like before we figure it out, but that's what we're envisioning. And we're completely open to feedback as well.
Follow up on that, will farmers need to be retrained? I'm hoping not.
So I think, as you asked, are we going to require that farmers need to be retrained?
Yes, for version 2.0.
Perfect. So the short answer is no, not a requirement. And again, this is sort of initial thoughts of what we're thinking. We haven't nailed down the final. But no, we do not think growers are going to be required to be retrained. We think that it's going to be recommended because then growers need to know what the final requirements are. But no, it's not going to be a requirement. Yeah. And I think one of the products we've been talking about is kind of like we do supplemental slides, thinking about those growers that not required, but probably would want to see an update. We would probably put together some kind of slide set saying, oh, have you already attended a grower training? What's the most important things that you need to know in the final sub-party? Yeah.
Okay, I think Chuck will be the last question, and then we'll...
I'm going to apologize for this question.
It's okay.
Ahead of time. So what is the difference between the PSA training and the trainer training?
So it's in order to become a PSA trainer, there's a couple of different steps. The first step is attending a grower training course. So they're often in a room, either remotely or in person. They see that entirety of the curriculum. And then the next step would be to take a PSA Train the Trainer course, which is normally a two-day course in person, or generally it's 4 days in a remote setting.
But what does the Train the Trainer give you the ability to do?
Attending the Train the Trainer gives you the slides and the ability to teach that curriculum to growers or to grower training participants.
Okay, and then once a trainer teaches the curriculum to their farmers, then the farmers still have to undergo a PSA training?
No, and it might be helpful. I know we talked about this a little bit. It might be helpful. We have a flow chart. It might be helpful if I show you kind of the website and we talk through that. It kind of visually explains it. In the produce safety rule, there is an educational requirement so that farms that are covered under the regulation must attend a PSA grower training course or an equivalent. And being a trainer would allow you, with a lead trainer, would allow you to teach at the grower training course, and then those growers or those participants would get a certificate kind of supporting that they've attended it.
We can talk. Thank you.
Sorry, it might be helpful if I have visuals. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Donna. Okay. So our next presenter is Donna Schaffner. Donna works for the Rutgers Innovation Center, and she will be presenting on the Food Safety Preventive Controls Alliance update. And you're all looking around the room because you're like, where's Donna? But it's 2023, and Donna is in Florida, but she is also live in a Zoom room, and she's going to appear behind me on the screen. And she will be giving a live presentation, so she is live, and we will take a Q&A when she completes. So welcome, Donna. It's wonderful to see you, and I'll turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks. So those of you who know me know that trying to condense this to 10 minutes is going to be a challenge for me, but that's the time I was given. So I'm supposed to give you an update on preventive controls for human food. And I do have the statistics, but from the questions we got in the last section, I think probably a lot of you who are actually sitting there are going to be more interested in the new curriculum. So the original curriculum, from the time it was released and about 2016, we trained a tremendous number of people and lead instructors. But obviously, that was more than 10 years ago. So now we're looking at the version 2 curriculum, which has been being worked on for a little over a year now. It's to the point where the curriculum committee thinks it's ready to go. It has been submitted to the FDA and has to be accepted by the FDA as the standardized curriculum to replace the first version. And then the version 1, 1.1, 1.2 Now we're jumping to a completely new version, so version 2 has to be approved through the FDA. Now, that's the point that we're currently at. Now, to answer those questions that we were just hearing for the produce part, the lead instructors who would present the training for preventive controls for human food, they will be required to go through an update training to teach this new curriculum. So after it's approved by the FDA as the standardized curriculum, there will be a phase-in period when some instructors may still be teaching the version we had before, but then it's going to be a requirement that all lead instructors will have to go through an update training session. Now, because we don't know when these dates actually were going to be, these things are kind of still in the works. So how much time they're going to have to get the update training, how much it's going to cost exactly, how it's going to be delivered. So there's obviously they'd like to have people do in person. We may have remote, we may have mixed. So that all hasn't been worked out yet. But everybody who's currently registered as a lead instructor for preventive controls for human food will be notified that they need to attend a refresher course. Now, from the question that the gentleman had about produce, would the farmers be required to have it? So in this case, would the food processors be required to go through a training for version 2? And the answer to that is no, because there's not actually a requirement that any of the processors go through this training, okay? So they can't require them to go through an updated training. We can highly encourage them to go through an update training so that they get the new information. And I think the most support we get for this is actually coming from those third-party audits. So your auditors are going to be telling people you need to retake the course after a certain amount of time. And when we have the update out, I imagine that lead instructors will probably be contacting their former students saying, look, there's an update. It would behoove you to retake the course and get the update, but it's not a requirement. For the trainers, it will be a requirement. For the former participants, it's not a requirement, but it would be highly recommended because there are enough changes that we're doing a new version. So it will be expected that there are things people don't know that they would learn in the new one. Now, the certificates, we saw in general there was a drop in trainings during COVID, obviously in 2020. And then they've been gradually trending back upward. But if you look at the domestic certificates from 2016 to December of 2022, you see they're trending downward. And that is obviously the requirement that at least one person in a facility have some sort of training. Well, we've trained a lot of companies. I mean, we've got very large numbers of companies have someone who's had the training. So it's generally trending downward. And this is the same thing we would see with the beginning of the regulation for anything. We saw the same things with HACCP. When it's first enacted or at first your company's size first comes under the requirement, we have a lot of people take the course, and then it's generally trending down. Now, this is the numbers that Gerald had sent me from IFPTI as far as the domestic PCQI certificates for human food. This is for total PCQI certificates. Looks very similar. Now, the total certificates issued to date, we're looking at 137,000. Lead instructors total, we're looking at 2,255. So that's through over 14,000 courses that have been run. So Upcoming courses, we've got another 300 and something registered. Of the 14,000 that were registered, we had close to 12,000 of those were actually completed. So these numbers don't, so the reason you've got such a big gap between participant courses registered and participant courses completed is because of the way the registration system and the fact that if you schedule a class, so for instance, for Rutgers, I would schedule all my classes for the upcoming year near the end of the year before. But then things come up, those dates might have to shift. If the dates have to shift, you have to cancel that course and register it as a new course. So that's why you see such a gap between registered and completed. So I do a lot of the customized classes for specific for companies. Those classes tend to change more often than an open enrollment class because something comes up with a company, they can't have their people off on that date. They have to shift it. So that's where you see that. Now, lead instructor courses completed, you see 105 total. And do the very fast and dirty what's going on. Since if I take my full 10 minutes plus questions, Glenn's not going to have any time to talk. So biggest thing that's happening right now with preventive controls for human food is version 2 coming out. Hopefully this is going to be later this year. Now, for some of you, I know that Martin had been hoping that this version of the course would take the place of a HACCP course. That is not going to be the case. This course is not going to be submitted to the International HACCP Alliance, at least not by the FSPCA. Okay. And just as a hint, you may want to deplete your supply of the version 1.2 textbooks if you have them bought ahead of time, because obviously once this is approved, you're going to be needing to buy the new version of the textbook. So good luck with teaching this next year. And if you have any questions. So do we have time for questions?
We have questions for Donna. In order for her to hear them, you have to talk into the mic. So let me bring it to you.
Thanks so much. Wendy White from Georgia Tech. Donna, that was a great update. I really appreciate that. I don't have anything to add, but I am on the curriculum committee, so if you have any questions about that, you can come to me during the break.
Very good. And also, just to let everybody know, if you want to know more about those numbers, Gerald Westala has a 14-page presentation of the numbers of how many courses in which countries and which languages. There just really wasn't time for me to go through all of those with this, but IFPTI has all of that. They have the monthly updates on those sort of things, or you can contact me directly. My email is dfschaffner@NJAES, New Jersey Ag Extension Service, .rutgers.edu. Any other questions?
Other questions for Donna? I'm looking at the PC people. Nicole, questions. Amanda, questions. Hob, questions. Beth, question.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that this is very clear. If someone is the PCQI person at their plant who writes their food safety plan, if they went through version 1.0, they don't have to take version 2.0 and they're still the PCQI.
Because there's not a legal requirement that they have to take this course, right? They have to have an education, this course or something similar. So we can't require them to retake this course because there's not a requirement for them to take it to start with.
Okay.
We could highly recommend that they take.
And so would you highly recommend that they take it a second time?
Oh, absolutely. Once the new curriculum is out, they've changed things around, and they would be recommended that people retake it, just so they have the latest information.
To follow up on that, do you foresee when firms go to update their food safety plan, that people will be recommended to take the new version of the course?
Well, so it depends on how long it's been since they took the course and which instructor they took it from and so forth. Like if people took this 10 years ago, absolutely, I'm going to tell them they should get an update anyway, because a lot of things have changed. But once you get the new curriculum out, there are a number of things that the curriculum committee felt like needed to be changed. So it is going to behoove everybody to retake the course and get that version 2 course so that they get the most up-to-date information.
Thank you.
Now, if you've got a really on-the-ball PCQI at your place and they are, every day they're looking at outbreaks and they're looking at all the information and they're getting the emails from FDA and they're getting the emails from IFPTI, then it might not be as much for them. But if they're working in the plant and they haven't been updated since their training, then they definitely need to retake it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Dave?
Quick question and clarification on the delivery methods. I think you had mentioned that there may be some discussion of whether or not there will be a hybrid model versus a non at first. Is that correct?
Well, and that was for the trainer updates. That hasn't been worked out exactly yet. But right now, the delivery of the trainings, the version 2 to participants, it's accepted right now that you can do it virtually, hybrid, or in person. So that hasn't changed at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Donna, I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us today. I appreciate it very much. And we'll take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Final presentation is Glenn Bass, who is also joining us virtually. And Glenn is with the Food and Drug Administration, and Glenn will be giving a preventive controls update.
As it stated, my name is Glenn Bass. I'm the Deputy Program Director in the Human Animal Food on the West, and I'll be giving you an update on the FDA preventive controls in human food. All right, so I'll be giving you a general update, and then I'll be giving the impact that the agency has experienced with COVID-19 and then some of the adjustments we're making as we continue to still evolve with the COVID. As I start, I want people to understand just the body of the organization I represent, which is the Human and Animal Food. It's the largest program in the FDA and Office of Regulatory Affairs. You can see we span both the East and the West, and just to let you see the territories that we expand. So some of the work we've been doing primarily in the preventive controls area has really been focusing on the compliance program, which is a document that we issue to the field that conveys all the inspectional strategy and the compliance work that we want done under preventive controls. And particularly, we concentrated heavily on the subpart C, the hazard analysis and risk-based preventive controls. And what we have found as we continue to implement this new rule is we've had to, as we learn about case development, and we learned in our discussion with the Center of Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, their Office of Compliance, and we learned to engage with our Office of Chief Counsel, we've gotten new interpretation on how we should implement many of the components of the preventive controls. And so what we have done to make sure our staff is always aware of the latest and the greatest guidance is coming out, we've done what we concentrate on what we call staff development webinars, in which we recently had a staff development webinar in which we gave updated guidance and field instructions on how we would implement the subpart B and parts of subpart C when we're doing preventive controls inspection on the human food. In addition, we have what's called the Quarterly Preventive Controls Human Food Meeting, in which we have a meeting with our FDA offices out in the field and also our state partners. And we go over, like I said, the latest strategies that's going on, novel cases and findings, so that we can convey the same information in which we're giving our field investigators. We do the same with our state partners, trying to make sure we have a consistent program. And always the goal is moving toward that integrated food safety system. One of the other things we've really spent a considerable amount of energy and time on is we implemented food safety culture throughout our organization. It went as high as our Associate Commissioner of Operations to the baseline CSO. We have implemented and made it a requirement of all of ORA, OHAFO field staff to take this ORA food safety culture. We worked with North Carolina State to develop a program specific to the OHAFO, focusing on food safety culture. And we understand food safety culture is not a regulation, but it gives us a sense of understanding when we're doing the system-based inspections under preventive control. The food safety culture gives us a sense of what that firm, their understanding of really food safety. And we when you look at some of the largest outbreaks we've had in history, when you do a retrospective study of that organization, you will find out that they didn't have a very good food safety culture. And so we had an all-day training in which we trained our staff to get a sense of what is a firm with no food safety culture. We had several examples. We had firms with beginning food safety culture and then well advanced. And so this is a way in which we're just making sure our investigators are sensitive to signals when they're inspecting. I just want to caution: one, it's not a regulation, and two, we will not be documented on a 483. So you can see the vast group of people we trained. We trained over 1,000 FDA staff, and then I had 24 virtual, and we have also invited many of our other food safety agencies and international partner. We had some group of people from CFIA took the food safety culture. I want to bring your attention, if people don't realize, facility food registration, what was under the BT, is a biannual registration. And of course, the registration generally, it's from October to December, which just closed in 2022. So for firms who did not register, probably about now or not mid-February, the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, their office for food facility registration, they will begin to start canceling those registrations if a firm has not fully re-registered. So just an FYI, my public information. We're also in the throes now of really implementing one of the final rules under FSMA, is really the traceability. You could see here the bulk traceability requirement will not take effect until January 20th of 2026. And what we are now really focusing heavily on is really working on the implementation strategy on how we're going to get this program up and running. So we have work groups formed, and we will be developing our strategy from inspection to compliance, working with our state partners as we begin to really flesh out this new authority with the traceability. I think some of the things that are critical for people to understand about food traceability is now there is what they call the FTL list. So if you're on that FTL list, the firm will then have additional record keeping requirements. All this information is available on the web, as you see on the slide here. Just wanted to give just a sense of some of the impact we've dealt with COVID-19. Right now, we are back to what we consider normal routine work, but you could see how it has affected us starting in 2020 all the way to now. Right now, we are back to normal doing our routine work. and I want to have this slide just to bring your attention. The way in which we navigated during the COVID, we had what was called a COVID data tracker. And that data tracker would, we got information from all of the federal agencies, primarily CDC and now public health agencies, to determine the infections rate in the various areas of the country. And we would label those areas with red, yellow, and green. And that sort of impact how we were going to do the work with our staff. Right now, that system is sitting and waiting. We still have access. Should we get back into a pandemic, and we need to then determine where and how we're going to conduct inspections, that COVID tracker is available to our staff should we need it. In the throes of the pandemic, we also started doing a new body of work, which is called the Remote Regulatory Assessment. It's a voluntary program in the human food side. It is the remote regulatory assessment. It can be done on the medical product side, and it also can be done under FSVP, which is the Foreign Supplier Verification in our Office of Import Operation. However, on the food side, because we don't have the authority, we did create this program in which we made voluntary options to some firms who we had previous inspections with. We offered them, if they wanted to participate in this voluntary remote regulatory assessment. And you can see on the bottom, there's a draft guidance that was issued in July 2022. One thing we try to remind people is that with the remote regulatory assessment, it does not replace an inspection. What it does is when we do go on site and do inspection, it reduces the amount of time in which we would have to inspect, because many of the corrective actions, if we can document, have been corrected, we can then proceed with the inspection and concentrate on other things. Here's some of the really impact you could see here on the slide on how the COVID has impacted us. When you look at from 2019 to 2022, you can see how we were up just over 7,000, and in the throes of the COVID, we went down, below almost 4,000, and now we are starting to make that steady increase, getting operations back to normal. And so we continue to increase our ability to do the domestic inspection. Bring to your attention, even in the midst of the pandemic at its worst, we always had the ability, if it was required or needed, we could always do what we considered mission critical work, some type of emergency work, which would be, some major significant class 1 recall or a major outbreak investigation. We always had the ability to perform those mission critical operations. Just to give you a sense, you can look at when we have done the work that we have done, you can look and see what the classification, and for the most part, it's been, it's relatively steady when you compare how we're classifying the work we're doing. NAI would be for no action indicated, which means we found nothing, may not even issued a 483 on those. VAI is we found something, may have been an observation on a 483, or it could have even been what we call a discussion item with the firm. And then OAI would be, we found something of significance, and then we were going to make what we call an administrative recommendation to the center, which would be something like a warning letter. And so you can see how we've been sort of steady with the type of inspections, the final classification being from OAI, VAI, and NAI, which is the bulk of the work. This gives you a sense of the top 10 domestic inspection observations we've seen in recent years. And I love the way this slide is presented, because it's a collage. And, you can see it ranges from pest control to manufacturing, sanitary. And of course, we've also had a consistent, finding with the hazard analysis, or identifying the proper hazard analysis. And so this gives you a collage of what we've documented. If you ever want to see that information, this is a slide that was part of our FDA transparency, which we consider the FDA data dashboard. It's open to the public. You can click on the link as you see there, or you can go to fda.gov, type in the queue for dashboard, and you could pull up all this information. It's accessible to the public should you want to see what our inspection classifications looking like, or what our observations are. You have access to that data. Any questions?
Yep. Questions for Glenn? Amanda. Oh, Andy's right behind you, Amanda.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Hi, thank you for your presentation. I just had a quick question, kind of thinking back with the group here as food safety communicators. Your FDA team has some training programs that seem that they would be universally beneficial for us as educators to also have access to. Is it possible for the training programs that you spoke of, specifically the food compliance program trainings and the ORA food safety culture trainings, to be accessible to the NECAFS community?
I think the direction we've been given, if you want to get access to food safety culture, for the most part, North Carolina State, if I'm correct, is really doing a lot of the external engagement. There was a recent announcement, I think it was by the Produce Alliance virtually. They leveraged the same training with North Carolina State, so they're working with North Carolina State to put it on for their produce industry. I would recommend you reach out really to them and to determine how you guys could, form some type of collaboration to get access to the food safety training.
Okay.
And about the compliance programs and the webinars, for the most part, those webinars, there are internal training. So for the most part, we generally don't send them to external stakeholders. Yeah, I mean, we share them with our state partners and, and like I said, the ORA field investigators.
Okay, yeah, I guess I would just like to make a shout out, and I'm looking at the room in terms of us as educators. I think it's been very beneficial for us when we're communicating to our trainings to kind of understand the regulatory perspective. And so having access to the type of training and the things that you're preaching to your community to help reinforce and then provide better technical support to the processor, because we're seeing what you all are putting down, and then executed on the back end as a supporter directly to the processor. So I guess I would just advocate that considering finding new collaborations where we, the food safety communicators, could have access or at least be exposed to some of those trainings would give us a better lift to ensure better compliance. So the inspections could be more success, not that they're not failing now, but we can improve inspections if we have a better understanding of the landscape. And particularly, I guess I would say that from my perspective in the state of Massachusetts, frankly, I don't have a lot of leverage to empower processors to comply with the PCH rule right now. It's really motivated by buyer demand through auditing schemes. Our audit schemes are significantly higher lift of execution compared to the PC rule. And it seems like a strong disparity and a huge opportunity for us to provide better technical support. And I guess I would just advocate again that having access to those types of trainings could better enable relationships with you all as inspectors and give us better, powerful tools of how to provide better motivation to execute for compliance to the rule.
Okay, good point.
Other questions for Glenn? Great. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
So I would just like to say, if we think of food safety as our child, it takes a village, right? And we often talk about the federal partners sort of as an entity, right? Like, oh, FDA is coming, but they're people. And the people who come are here to help and support, and we couldn't do it without them. And I very much appreciate the relationships and those collaborations and the willingness to be here and the give and take and taking the time to answer questions and give updates. So thank you to all of our federal partners. You're appreciated, and I'm very happy to have had you. So thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.